Hello everyone, I'm Chief Tim Bays. I am your Mission Support Group Superintendent and also have the privilege of filling in as your Interim Command Chief for the 6th Air Refueling Wing.
And I'm A1C Perez. I work here and live here at MacDill Air Force Base.
So the lead conversation today, we're going to talk a little bit about just some Air Force general stuff, leadership, mentorship, life in the dorms, financial stability, stuff like that.
Yes, sir. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Would you like to go first or shall I?
Go ahead.
Alrighty, sir. What did your family think about your decision to come in? Did they support your choice?
All right, so when I decided to join, I was more worried about my fiance at the time than I was the rest of my family and what they thought. And she was very supportive of it. I actually talked first to an Army recruiter and was talking to them about joining the Army. She wasn't a big fan of that, but when I went to the Air Force recruiter and talked to them, and at the time I was kind of, struggling through college and paying bills and that kind of stuff. So the Air Force was a great avenue for me, and they were very supportive of that.
That's really good to hear, Chief.
What about you?
For me, I am a 5th-generation family for the military, so it really wasn't that of a hard decision or hard talk with them. All of them had said to go to the Air Force, and my closest aunt and uncle were in the Air Force, and they got out, and they were all for it. I had already done 2 years of college, and I wanted to experience something new, and I knew in the Air Force they would give me that stability and able to do new things, so I was really happy with my decision, and here I am.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. So my turn?
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Okay, so is it hard to find a social when living on base?
Yes, sir. It is very silent in the dorms. It's really hard, especially since we're living in the new age with a lot of new technology. I think a lot more people are isolated, especially for a lot of people in the dorms. This is their first duty station. They don't know what to expect, especially after coming out of BMT to tech school and then straight to your first duty station. You don't know anyone. It's all new, and you're just put into this room, and you feel really isolated. And I'm lucky that I'm able to live in the new dorms where it's a quad lifestyle, where I'm able to talk to my roommates every day, whereas in the old dorms you only share a bathroom with that one roommate. Yeah. So unless you are in a workplace that have a lot of other airmen that are living in the dorms, it is very hard.
Yeah, and I think with COVID that's definitely made it more difficult.
Yes,
but as we look at opening things back up and providing more services on base, hopefully there's some opportunities for you guys to get together and do more things, the bowling alley, the beach, that kind of stuff as it warms back up. But definitely very difficult right now with COVID, and hopefully that gets better.
Me too, sir.
Yeah.
Alrighty, my turn. What made you decide to come into the Air Force, and are you glad that you did?
Okay. So, like I said a little bit ago, I decided to join the Air Force. So I had some family members that were military, and I was literally watching TV one night with my roommate, and we saw an Air Force commercial. Mm-hmm. So we decided to call that recruiter, and we said, hey, give us a call first thing tomorrow morning. And she did, really early, way earlier than we had expected. So got that phone call, and my roommate and I just went and started talking to the recruiters because, like I said, we were both going to college, trying to pay rent and bills and everything else. And the recruiter told me that I could build houses in the Air Force. I have not built a house since I've been in the Air Force, but at the time I was framing houses and trying to go to college, and I thought, well, great, that's, if they can pay for my school and also, providing income, insurance, that kind of stuff, then I'm going to go do this. And so I joined. I was just going to do 4 years, mm-hmm. And here I am 20 years later, wow. Still serving. But that's why I joined, really it was a commercial. I saw a commercial and thought, well, let me take a chance at this.
That's really funny that you say that, sir, because every commercial I see is for the Marines, the Army, never the Air Force, mm-hmm. and I always saw those commercials. And before joining the military, I always thought all pilots were Air Force pilots. I didn't think other pilots who were in the other branches. And due to my aunt and uncle being in the Air Force, I've always just had a preference towards the Air Force, mm-hmm. and even having other uncles, cousins be in the Army, they always said, don't do it. And so it was just a really good and happy decision that I came in the Air Force.
Well, that's great. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next question here. All right, do you think it's fair the airmen living in the dorms get their rooms inspected when their married counterparts do not?
I think coming from BMT to tech school, we are in a whole different aspect than coming to your first duty station. There we're obviously learned and trained to be more, to come from the civilian counterpart to our military counterpart, to have the military mindset. So there was different things that we experienced in BMT and tech school, and to me they were a lot more in your face in that point in time. But here in living in your dorms, I do understand why, because everything is owned by the government. They just have to make sure that we are taking care of what they are giving us, because they are giving us a roof over our head and stability here at base. So I do understand to an extent of why we do have to get dorm inspected, and as well as why our married counterparts do not, because they are living off base, and from there it is their own responsibility to maintain their living quarters.
I think that's a great perspective. And you're right. I mean, when we talk about government facilities, plus when you think about the dorms, we have a lot of airmen living in close quarters.
Right.
And so we have to, periodically just check on that and make sure that people are clean, that they're, being respectful of their neighbors, living in that many people in one building, and then also taking care of the government quarters. I mean, that's something that we all have a responsibility to do. And we don't know what's going on if we don't check every once in a while.
Exactly.
And so I do think there's value in that, and it's important to do that. And then when you talk about people living off base, also on base, it's privatized housing. And so they do go in and they do their maintenance checks and that kind of stuff. And so they check to make sure that things are taken care of and that they're clean when they do those types of checks. And so there are some levels of oversight when you're renting a place from somebody. And if somebody owns their house off base, then that's their responsibility for that. But I do think that's a great perspective that you have on that topic.
Thank you, sir. And I also think it is good that we do also do dorm inspections, because for a lot of people, we all have came from different backgrounds. Some people are used to living in conditions that are not the best of conditions. So it is good to see that, hey, if something is broken, you are able to fix it. You just have to say something.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Alrighty. Okay. What is the hardest thing about living in the dorms? For me, for myself, it would probably be the storage. I do not have enough space to put all my clothes away, sir, as well as my shoes. So to me, the hardest thing about living in the dorms is that I do not have space.
Well, if that's the hardest thing about living in the dorms, I think we're doing pretty well.
Yes, sir.
Because I'll tell you, even in my base house, I don't have enough storage and place to put all my clothes. But that's great. And when I was an airman in the dorms, I didn't have a whole lot of stuff when I moved into the dorm, so for me that wasn't a problem. And I loved it because I had, the dining facility right across the street, the gym across the street, and the BX across the street. So I had everything that I needed, and it was really, really pretty easy. But I did have sweet mates and friends that, they had the desire to work on their car, and they had tools and all these things and didn't have anywhere to put them. So that's a great point with the storage. And I know some bases do have storage capability for dorm folks, but some have less. And so, yeah. Nothing else?
One thing I do think is that for us, like you said, the gym is just down the street, the bowling alley is just right there, as well as the defect. The only thing is that the exchange and the commissary are quite a bit away.
Yeah.
And for those airmen that do not have vehicles here, I think it would be a really good thing if we started a bicycle or a scooter program that we are able to just grab a scooter and just drive and use that all the way over to the exchange or the commissary, just to pick up simple things, even laundry soap and something like that. A lot of airmen don't have cars when arriving to their first duty station. So that is an issue here, because if walking from the dorms to the exchange, that's already 30 minutes. And then to hold whatever you can and then walk back with it is another 30. So an hour in total of just walking.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a really great initiative if we started a bicycle or a scooter program where we are able to use that for the airmen in the dorms.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. And so actually, I'd like to continue that conversation
Yes, sir.
after this, if you're okay with that.
I'm certainly okay
we'll see
with
what
that,
we
sir.
can do with that. That's a great idea.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, awesome. All right, next question. Okay. Do you see a generation gap between airmen and their leaders?
I do, sir. I do think that the Air Force has changed. I'm only 21 years old. I know there are people in that have been in long before I even was born. It is a very different year, especially with coming in to a pandemic. I'm barely a year and a couple months into the Air Force, and I joined when the Air Force was still in not just only the Air Force, but the military was in its longest war. And less than a year into my Air Force career, there was a pandemic. Not only are we facing those troubles now, but with the people who have been in, there's a lot more new technology. There are a lot more discussions happening with diversity and inclusion that need to be happening a long time ago. This is not something that should have just been brought up now. So
Yeah.
I do think there is a gap, and I do think that we do need to hear everyone's perspective. Everyone comes from different backgrounds. Everyone is joined with different life experiences, so I do think that there is some type of gap, and that we do need to sit down all the way through the Airman basics, all the way straight up to the chiefs as well as to the colonels and the generals. I think everybody needs to be heard. Everyone has different experiences, so it's not only good for the airmen who are just barely starting out to hear everyone else's voice words, but also vice versa, to making sure that all airmen here at MacDill have a voice.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And there is a difference in generations, right? But I'll tell you, so we read an article when I went through the Senior NCO Academy that talked about, I think it was from the 60s maybe, and it was an NCO in the military that was saying, hey, these young soldiers coming in today, you know, they're not the same as us. There's always going to be a generation gap.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a positive thing, and I think that's what keeps us moving forward. And so we have to learn and adapt the same as the airmen coming in today have to learn and adapt. And so when we learn from you, because you guys are coming in, you're very smart, right? You have the technology. That's what you've kind of grown up with
Mm-hmm.
compared to a lot of us older folks. And so I think it's very important for us all to look at every aspect of what you bring to the table and what our experience brings to make us the best Air Force we can be, right? And I think you illustrated that very well with talking about we need to listen to every airman all the way up to our leaders, just to make sure that we're bridging that gap that exists, to make sure that we're taking advantage of those opportunities and not pushing people away because they think differently.
Thank you
So,
for
yeah.
that, sir.
Yeah, that's great.
What is your advice for financial stability and things like TSP?
Yeah, so, you know, what I would tell you is everybody's situation is different when it comes to their finances. And like you said, everybody comes from different backgrounds, from different situations. And so we have to look at what situation is everybody in and then what works for them. So don't try to keep up with other people and do what other people are doing. What I would say is look at your finances, your situation, your goals, and what you want to achieve, and then you invest properly based off of what you desire. And so take a look at that. You know, always have a plan. You can't do anything without a good plan. So set a plan in place, set financial goals, and then work towards those based off of what your current situation is, what you can afford to do, and consider all of that when setting up your financial goals. And then the other thing is talk to somebody about it, right? There are a lot of experts out there and a lot of people that will give you good, sound advice when it comes to planning for your future. And the TSP is a good program. It's a great way to get people started. So, you know, I just would encourage people to have a plan, know what they want to achieve with their financial goals, and then start working towards that very early. Don't wait until, you know, 20 years in to start investing.
I think that's really great, sir, because time is the only thing that you cannot take back.
Yep.
So the sooner you get started on something, the sooner the better. And I think it's also good because the military gives you the Airman Family Readiness Center, that they also do budgets and stuff like that. And then you also have your supervisor, your other NCOs, as well as your officers that are there to help you and guide you with your financials.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go to the next one here. All right, so this one is, did you always know that you wanted to be a chief? So more directed towards me.
Yes, sir.
So I did not know that I always wanted to be a chief. And to be honest with you, when I joined the Air Force and I saw a lot of people at the time retiring as tech sergeants and master sergeants, I thought, you know what, if I can just make master and run my own shop and maybe be a first sergeant, that was a goal of mine, something I always kind of desired to do, then I'll be doing okay, and that's kind of my goal. So, you know, as I went through that, I made master and I got to be a first sergeant. And then I still had some time left and some energy, and things worked out for me to eventually be a chief. But that was not my goal, and I'm very glad that it worked out that way. And this is a great job. But just being in the Air Force, leading airmen, it really doesn't matter and didn't matter to me what rank I achieved. What really mattered to me was, do I get an opportunity to lead our airmen, to take care of airmen, to give back from the leaders and supervisors that gave to me? That was really my goal. And fortunately, along the way, I've been able to make chief and get to this point, and I'm really enjoying it.
That's wonderful to hear, sir, because I think regardless of rank that you should be able to be taking care of your airmen as well as any other airmen around you.
Mm-hmm. What about you? Have you ever thought about?
No, sir. I have thought about commissioning, but I just hope that life goes the way it is planned, and I know it never goes the way it is, but I just hope that good things are in my future, and that's all I can hope for.
Well, I'm sure they are, so yeah,
Thank you,
just
sir.
keep working towards your goals.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
What do you say to someone who says they want to get out?
So this is a tricky question, right? Everybody's situation is a little bit different, and I don't try to be a recruiter. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm thinking about separating from the Air Force, but what I do ask them is, what are your goals? What's your plan? Because at the end of the day, whether somebody served 4 years, 6 years, or 20 years, I want them to know that whatever time they served was valuable, that they should be proud of that, and not have to apologize for getting out if they don't want to do 20 years. On the flip side of that, I always want to keep good airmen and keep talent. So I always ask what their plan is, what their goals are, to see if maybe there is something that we can do within the Air Force. Maybe they want to cross-train. Maybe they need a different base or a different outlook, a different perspective. So I will try to provide that and help them. But if at the end of the day they have goals that just don't align with remaining in the military, I just want to thank them for their service and make sure that they leave feeling proud of what they did, because not everybody serves in the military, and it's really an honorable thing, and I want people to just know that. And so the goal is always to just help them, either help them transition and have a smooth transition and go be a productive civilian, or maybe offer them some opportunities that would keep them moving in the path of the Air Force. But yeah, I always just want to be helpful.
That's good, sir. I do not know if I want to stay in after my 6-year contract, but I just know for those who have or are separating, they already know that they have a plan, or they've already experienced everything, and the Air Force has given them what they needed, and now that they're done with either their contract and they're coming out, they are happy with their decision.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's great. As long as they know what they want and they're working towards those goals, I want them to be successful, and so that's really what matters.
Yes, sir, it does.
Yeah. All right, let's go to this. Oh, we're out.
We're out?
We are out of questions.
Okay, sir. Well, I have a few questions of my own, sir.
Okay.
So, as an airman in the dorms, they get their BAS taken away. Then they are put on meal card. But different airmen have different dietary needs or religious reasons as to why they cannot eat certain foods.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think an airman should be given the choice of whether or not they should receive BAS or be on meal card?
So I do think that there are times where exceptions should be considered and made. I think generally speaking, the dining facility is a very practical setup for our airmen that live in the dorms, to keep them from having to worry about cooking, and it provides a service that's pretty necessary. But I do think, just like we make exceptions for mission requirements. So if somebody has maybe their shift work, let's use firefighters for an example, and they spend a large amount of time at the fire department, so they're not in their dorm, so they get their BAS versus having to be on meal card. And I think dietary reasons, religious accommodations, so there are things that we could definitely look at that I think should be considered on a case-by-case basis. I think generally speaking, having the dining facility is a benefit to our folks, but I do think having that opportunity, especially now that we have kitchens available in a lot of the dorms for airmen to cook. Not all of our dorms are set up that way with the kitchens, but it does make it a lot easier for airmen to cook their own meals and meal prep and provide the food that they want.
Thank you for your outlook on that, sir. I just wanted to hear your opinion about that, and I think that summed it up really great. Now, my next question, sir, is for the COVID vaccine. For now that we do have it and it is in sight, do military members need to give consent before it is administered by the med group on that military member?
So currently, yes, it is voluntary. Currently, now once it's completely approved, I don't know that it'll remain voluntary, and so we'll have to take a look at that and kind of watch that as it happens. And similarly, I mean, we've had other vaccines throughout my career that we've taken that were not fully approved, but we did take them depending on the mission and where we were going and that kind of stuff. So there are reasons for that, and I do think eventually this will get fully approved. But for now, and I know a lot of people are concerned because it is a new vaccine. And I would just encourage folks to go out there and read the data on it. Look at the information that's available to you, and decide whether or not you have, the confidence in where we're at and what your decision is going to be. But definitely do your homework, do your research on it. The stuff I've read gives me a pretty high level of confidence in the vaccine, but I do understand, why people would be cautious kind of going into that and want to do their homework. And I encourage people to do that. I think you should make every decision very informed.
Yes, sir. Thank you for clarifying that. Now, there have been countless articles that have said that the Air Force is working more towards a teleworking world. Now, do you know what AFSCs those will be, or do you think it will be up to a commander's discretion?
So I think that'll be a lot up to commander's discretion, but I'll tell you one benefit of COVID-19 and the pandemic is that I think we've learned a lot. And so we should take any opportunity we have to learn from it and create efficiencies. And so I think what we've learned from this is we can telework, and we can do it effectively. Now, not in every situation, and there's got to be times where you come in, but I think our comm squadron became very important when the pandemic happened, and we needed to have that support, and everybody was going home and working from home. And if we've created some opportunities for people to have that flexibility and still be productive, I think it's a great way forward. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier with that generation gap, but really it's smart airmen bringing up great ideas and us moving forward with those and efficiency. And I think a lot of people have taken the opportunity to come up with some great ideas while going through our COVID work posture. And so this is one of them, and I think we'll be able to do some good things with that.
Me too, sir.
Yeah.
Me too. Do you know what you're going to do for the holidays, sir?
So we are just going to hang out. We're not going to travel. And my wife, every year, she is a great cook, and so she's got a big meal prepared for us, and we're just going to hang out and enjoy the warmer weather down here in Florida and enjoy the holidays. What about you?
I am actually going to go up to Minnesota. I will be with my boyfriend's family for the holidays.
Oh, awesome. Well, safe travels.
Thanks, sir.
Enjoy your holiday time off. And thanks for taking this time to sit down and chat with me. I think these are great topics. I think you have a great perspective. And I appreciate the time to just kind of sit here and hang out.
Of course, sir. And very much thank you to you, because I know this does not happen often. And I think this does need to be talked a lot more about, especially on an airman's point of view. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and being here with me as well.
For sure.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, thanks.